Hey y'all, welcome back to 18 Outdoors. We're doing something funny. We're gonna do a video and a podcast all at the same time. So let's go.
Here we are. About to start recording now.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Art of the Hunt. Today we got two special guests with us today. Michael Perry once again and Shane Parker.
How's it going?
How y'all doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
We're doing a cool thing, doing a video and a podcast. Y'all all right with that?
We're good with that.
Being birds of one stone.
Yeah.
Today we're going to take a deep dive into thermal hubs, and that's the reason we got Shane Parker here. Shane, do you want to give us a little bit of a background on how you kind of got started into hunting, and then maybe we can morph into the thermal hubs?
Well, like I was telling y'all earlier, I grew up just outside of a big piece of public land. Basically, we had property right in the middle of it. My family was trappers, stuff like that. Didn't do a lot of big game hunting, but my dad got me in with a couple of guys that were older, his age, maybe a little bit older than him. They taught me how to hunt. Again, when I first started hunting, it was a lot of dog hunting. So I guess I cut my teeth initially doing that, and just morphed it into more of the still hunting, stuff like that. That was more of my passion instead of the dog hunting. Had access to almost 100,000 acres of public property, so I just ran the roads, ran the woods, stayed in the management area, and learned everything I could learn. So that's basically how I started out, is just kind of having a couple good guys that showed me the way, and then I guess just after having a break from hunting for a while, I got back into it pretty hard, and right now I'm just trying to use the information I've gained over the last like 4 or 5 years, running all these trail cameras, and I guess using all the knowledge that I had that I really didn't know I could apply to hunting, to kind of I guess get back in the game and get kind of ahead, I guess.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of technology out there that helps. I'm sure that you've figured out now that you're back into it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the trail camera game really made a big difference for me. It answered a lot of the questions I had of why when I was younger was I having success here or not having success there in certain areas, like terrain wise. And the trail cameras really helped that. And then just applying some of the information that I had, I guess, gotten when I was younger. I did fire schools and things like that, and learned wind currents and things like that. So that's helped a lot too, as far as understanding these thermals and like how they interact and how they affect basically deer travel, I guess you could say.
Well, if you don't care, can you give a basic just description of a thermal period and how it reacts with any kind of wind or the sun? Just like what you learned in school, and just kind of give us a lot of that. So.
Yeah, basically a thermal is a rising column of air, and it only occurs when the ground heats up. So let's say in the morning, this is where there's a lot of misconception about thermals, is people think that once the sun comes up and the sun hits the ground, your thermals kick on and you automatically have a rising thermal. And it's at the same time every morning. Once the sun hits the ground, thermals rise, but that's not the case. It can take hours for a thermal to actually kick in. So the idea that once the sun hits the ground's immediately warm and you have rising thermals, that's throwing a lot of people off. So thermal is just a rising column of air that's caused by the heating of the ground. So basically how that affects wind currents and things like that is, if you have that rising column of air and you have a wind current with it, let's say you have a rising column of air and you have a south wind. Well, you got to think that column of air that's rising is being pushed in a certain direction. So even though you think, well, my thermal is just rising into infinity, it's really not. It's being pushed by that current that's above it. So canopy, things like that. So once you kind of understand how your thermals, I guess, react outside of your micro area, like that's very important to understand that your thermals are not just your micro, like your little bubble. It's what's happening away from you that affects basically your ability to hide your scent is basically it. And also falling thermals, another thing. Once the ground cools, it's a reversal. That temperature and that air current hits back to the ground and it falls out just like water. It's gonna go to the lowest point, whether that be a ditch, creek, river bottom. It could just be a low point on a flat area. So even if you have flat ground, you can have falling thermals.
So could you use that to like maybe minimize your scent then, when you know
yeah.
it's going to be
Yeah.
falling like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really rely on, I can't rely on rising thermal. I can rely on it as far as like generating deer movement. I think it does that more than anything. Like you can bank on a rising thermal generating deer movement, but as far as like hiding your scent, rising thermal is really hard to, it's hard to use. You can use a falling thermal because it kicks off the same time. If you have similar conditions, you're going to get that falling thermal pretty much the same time every day. It's not the same time, it's going to move as the sun changes, but you're going to have a more consistent hunt if you base it off of a falling thermal.
What kind of things can really affect the thermal pull? Like different weather conditions, or what really you see that really changes it?
Cloud cover just eliminates it. I mean, if it's thick enough cloud cover,
Really?
you won't see much. And that's really the only thing that really, I mean, strong wind current to say, over 12 miles an hour. If you have a strong enough sustained wind current across it, it can definitely affect it. It can reverse it, push against it, and that's when you get that swirling wind, But if you have calm conditions, you can bank on that thermal. It's going to be pretty consistent.
So if cloud cover you take it away or minimize it and everything, so this won't be occurring in thicker places out in the woods, right?
Oh yeah, it still will.
It would? I didn't know if the treetops would act as the same way.
No, it's got everything to do with that ground temperature.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So leaf cover or nothing won't have anything?
I mean, underneath it'll affect it, but it's still gonna happen at the ground level. It's just what it's gonna do once it rises into the canopy and gets above your canopy. Because like leaf off conditions, there's a big difference in your thermals, how they interact in leaf off conditions versus when you've got a full leaf canopy. A full leaf canopy, a lot of times your thermals will just rise to the bottom of that canopy and kind of just hover there, and they'll just kind of move along with it, like almost just, unless there's an escape point where they can escape out, they may just ride along the top of that canopy, So
Clouds and leaves and that. See, if you're studying a place like that, what makes you say north, south, east, and west for deer hunting? What would be the best? I mean, I know you run camera studies and stuff like that. You coordinate that with the thermal stuff?
I try. Yeah.
So deer prefer. Do you figure deer prefer a different style of thermal area?
Yeah, I've kind of figured out, having compressed all that information for the last like 4 years of running these trail cameras in different areas, because I kind of try to do that. I tried to move my cameras around and place them in pods where they're in different, like this north facing thermal hub, this is a south facing, this is a west facing, this is a east facing. And I kind of just compressed all that information down and figured out kind of when they do them. If you're looking for morning, a west facing thermal hub is going to have that upward movement. They're going to be coming from the bottom, trying to work their way up in the morning, because that thermal is dropping on that west facing thermal because it's not getting sunlight. So it's going to be much later in the morning before that sun gets up high enough to heat that west facing thermal. North facing thermal in early season, more than likely it's going to have complete cover. It's not going to get much sunlight. It's always cooler on the north facing thermal, on the north facing side. So you're going to have those use it probably just as instinctual, I guess. I don't know, like they don't sit there, I mean, that until a doe gets a certain age, to really learn her craft. I mean, a lot of times she can be just like a buck, They get to a certain point, they can use it just like a buck, but they're not being, they don't have that, I don't think, instinctual thing of being chased like a buck has.
Do you see them through there year round, or is it certain times like seasons or whatnot?
Oh, year round.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they're using them year round, but yeah. south facing thermal hub, usually they're getting a lot more sunlight. So when I've seen them kick off really well, it's when it's been really cold, and you'll hear a lot of the older hunters that'll hunt off of a south facing thermal, or off a south facing slope when it's really, really cold, because those deer are trying to thermoregulate. They're trying to warm up, cool up, stay in the sun, be able to move in and out of shadows on that south facing. And so if you have really, really cold temperatures, those south facing thermal hubs, if they're kind of open but got some thickness up top, I've got a few of them that they really light up. And it all depends on the habitat. Like in a wide open thermal hub that doesn't have any cover anywhere around it, they ain't gonna use it. Doesn't matter what it does, It's all about that cover,
I might have jumped a little bit ahead, I hope I didn't miss you off any, but can you explain the hub part, what the actual hub part, associated with that is?
Well, I mean, it basically just looks like it's a drainage that goes up, and it can split 2 ways, it can split 3 ways, it can split 4 ways, and in multiple ways. It just looks like a hand laid out, and it's going up into the ridge, and that hub is where all of those points kind of come together, and that's the central hub. They don't all have to come together at a certain point. A lot of times, the ones that I see used most are the ones that are kind of, you may have 2 coming off here and connecting, they dump into one, this one coming from this side, they kind of dump in at different angles. But you get that entire, where it can cut, where everything above that ridge is covering more space, meaning there's more angles for these things to go off of, these little drainages to drop down in. Those are the ones that seem to have more, because there's more scent information in that cone that's going to be compacted down into that hub, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and for our more visual learners out there like myself, we'll try to post a picture of an example of what a hub looks like.
Yeah.
So what kind of terrain, or what kind of habitat are you looking for in these hubs? I mean, of course you don't want it to be wide open, but is there some kind of habitat or plant or kind of thicket that you're looking for to really hold them in there?
You want a high stem count, and that goes with just about anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you get the thermal hubs that are kind of steep on the sides, you can get by with a little less stem count, just because they're kind of, they're steep, so it's almost like a cover type itself. But if you've got some that are not really steep, you want that high stem count. So it doesn't matter what it is, if it's pine thicket, if it's hardwood saplings, any kind of vegetation. If you can get them to have vines and stuff like that, and anything that's thick that blocks that view, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a pretty woods looking, thermal hub. You're just not going to get any value out of those. So they're very specific. They're not all the same, and they're not all going to produce the same, same amount of travel and stuff like that.
So what is when you find one of these that you're wanting to go scout or whatever, is there a certain way you're scouting it, or you just throwing a camera at it, see what it does, or you sitting there playing with milkweed or whatever and catching the thermals and see what it does?
I go in there and throw milkweed at different times. I may see them and pick one out and think, well, that looks pretty good. Go in there and throw milkweed, and I may go in there 3 or 4 times, like different times of the day, and I'll see what that milkweed's doing. I'll see in the higher elevation, see how, I may go in there. I like going in there during the season, like when they're actually going to be in there, which is a dangerous game. But if you're not really worried about hunting it, you can kind of get by with it, or you're just not worried about it. So a lot of this was just, I wasted 2 years, of basically boogering up areas.
Well, if you're learning your area, that's part of it.
That's
to me,
part of it,
learning that stuff. So that's, I mean, you're gonna give that up to learn.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh
so
yeah.
I can understand that completely.
Yeah.
That's a good thought process
Yeah.
to do that.
So a lot of times if you're coming in a new area, and like me, I knew the area that I hunted like the back of my hand, but I didn't know why I was hunting in these areas. So I just took a couple of years to say, I just got to learn it, So it was a lot of going in there during season, because it doesn't matter what you do in July and August and September, really. It's what you do in October, November, December that matters,
Well, if you ease into a place like that, so you're going to hunt or whatever, and if you drop a thermal and it ain't, or drop a milkweed and it ain't right, you can always just
back out.
Get
Oh, yeah.
and do something different.
Yeah.
The best thing is you're learning that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can't be in here right now.
Right.
Yeah. So it was teaching me a lot of that. Like, I can't be in here right now. I got to back out. And it was trial and error, and it was a lot of when I saw it mixed with sign, like, these thermal hubs will. I mean, if you get them right, they're just covered up with science. They're just like, oh man, I gotta hunt this, you know. And a lot of times that's just a recipe for disaster, you know.
You know,
And you learn that too, you know.
What do you think of, or what have you learned as far as your camera studies, like with the best way to access 1-2 hunt? So period, say morning or evening, just.
I mean, an east-facing one coming up from the bottom, because you're gonna be going into that thermal. You got a lot of times in those two, it's time specific. That's one thing I learned. You can't get in there, but you know, if you push up into an east-facing thermal hub too early, all of your scent's going up, or it's just being swirled around. If you've got any kind of wind in the east-facing thermal hub, and you push up in there before that thermal starts kicking, you're not gonna see anything. You know, you won't get blown at, you won't get anything, you just won't see nothing, you know. So it's very much a timing, you gotta wait almost to that thermal is moving in your direction. And in those, what I've seen with all my camera data is those bucks know it, just like we would know it. You know, like I know I can't get in there, and they don't move until they know it's completed its journey. Like in their, and that's when they're at their weakest in those east. That's why I like the east face. And that, if I had to say one was my favorite, because I've had more encounters since I've kind of learned this in the east facing than any of them.
So with access and everything, are you kind of entering more as later in the day? You're not getting out there.
I may only have 20 minutes to hunt.
Right.
In east facing, you know.
Yeah, because you know it's not going to start rising until the sun pops out.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it won't start, it may not be fully dropped because you can't really get into one until it's like completed its cycle. Like you're wanting to hit it right when it's like hit the fallout point. And that's when you're wanting to approach and come in, you know. So it may be you go and hang one. That's why, you know, some of the videos I've done, you're pulling in there and you're hanging one stick high because you ain't got much time to do it, you know.
Yeah.
And
that's evening hunt.
yeah, it's evening hunt. Yeah, that's late in the evening. So you may only be, you know, if it's, let's say legal shooting light ends at 6:15. You know, you're later in the season, so it's 6:15. You may not be entering that thermal hub until 5:30. You know.
So timing is everything.
Yeah, timing is everything on those. Yeah.
sounds like a really risky game.
It actually isn't. I mean, it's probably the least risky of them.
Really?
Because that thermal is carrying your scent where you've already been. You're basically foolproof unless something is going with you, which is not likely. It seems like it would be counterproductive, but I've been busted by does that have been walking a creek bottom or something like that, like way away from me. You know,
But
not the buck, because he's up in the thermal hub. He's waiting for that to happen so he can walk down the thermal hub and get down to those does. You know, now they'll bust out because they're doing the same thing I'm doing. You know.
So you're saying east for the evening?
Evening hunt, yeah.
What about the morning hunting?
The west.
West side.
Yeah, and you're wanting to do just the opposite of it. Yeah.
So they still act the same pretty much.
Just the opposite.
It's just the opposite. Yeah.
What I like so much. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I was just gonna say what I like so much about this is this kind of hunt kind of tailored to the working man. You know, you get off work, you can get out there, 20, 30 minutes of hunting. Anyways, well, this is right up that alley for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's really what I used to kill a lot of deer, not big bucks, but just deer in general in these areas, and I would kill them late in the afternoon. And this was when I was younger, and now I'm realizing that's what I was doing because I had this one particular area on this management area that set up just like this east facing thermal hub. There was a road. It went within access. It like 20-minute walk. And so I'm like, how did I kill so many deer in this little? Well, that's why. You know, they were doing the same thing. It's just I didn't realize exactly what it was. You know, what was causing it. You know, it had nothing to do with. It had nothing to do with a habitat. It wasn't a food plot nearby. You know, it's just one of those things you don't realize until you kind of dive into it. You know.
How did you kind of catch on with
that? What the thermal hub portion?
Yeah.
That's just where I seen so much sign in there. I'm like this, you know, like if you're hunting in the mountainous areas, your ridge spines, your saddles, and your thermal hubs are going to have the most sign to me. Like when I go scouting and I want to find sign, I'm going to walk the bottom I'm gonna walk the ridge side, the ridge top, and kind of, you know, circle around it, and I'm gonna walk through the small saddles. And that's where I'm gonna get all my sign information, like, okay, there's a good buck in here. So it's basically just doing that, and then dropping dropping milkweed. Like, it was like, that's basically what when I really dove into it, that's what made me do it, is just, you know, going in there, dropping milkweed, saying, well, you know, this makes sense, you know. And really, I kicked off this because of another podcast that the Southern Outdoorsman had on, Josh Driver.
Yeah.
I know y'all probably have heard him.
Right.
His episode, when he started talking about this, clicked in my head, because I'm like, I've always done the same thing, you know. So I recommend, if anybody, go back and listen to that episode, and that'll kind of give you an idea of what got me started on this.
Yeah, I think I just replayed that one
Yeah,
last week,
yeah.
so yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good one, son.
Yeah,
There's a lot of information in that episode.
yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you could really just go hunt a totally different spot and then move into where your thermal spot is at the end of the day if you want to hunt all day.
Yeah, if I'm hunting an east facing thermal, I'll scout, you know, because I'm not going. I mean, I know the more than likely the buck is. If I have enough intel that I think there's a buck in one, I'm not worried about boogering him out. He's going to be in that thermal hub, or I'm counting on it. If not, my thinking is way off, you know. So that's when I would use it to scout around. You know, I'm not really worried about pushing nothing onto him, but I'll use that couple hours I may have prior to go check cameras. You know, scout the ridge points around him to the east or west, and then drop down in there. You know.
So where are you kind of seeing a buck bed at in these thermal hubs? Could it be literally anywhere? Is he like in a certain elevation or anything?
Just off of my camera stuff and the beds that I find in them, what I think is happening is they move into these thermal hubs at the higher elevation on the secondary ridge points midday, and they may bed. Now this has nothing to do with the rut. Once the rut kicks in, you can throw all of this out the window. You know, it's literally useless at that point in time.
Yeah.
But prior to the rut and after the rut, after everything's calmed back down, we go back to this kind of activity. It's that pre-rut when they're checking scrapes, because a lot of times there's scrapes in the bottom of these thermal hubs, and those seem to be the key information gathering points. They move up in the higher elevation, say the upper 1/3, and they'll bed. And they may bed there all during the day. You know, they may move around a little bit. And then what I'm seeing, just like I said, just anecdotal, and a lot of my camera information is they're moving down lower into the thermal hub itself in that hour and a half to 2 hours before legal shooting light is over. So let's say legal shooting light is 6:15. 4:15, 4 o'clock, I'm not saying this every time, but in that period of time, that 2 hours before, they're going to kind of work down into that thermal hub and get lower in elevation, sensing that, hey, the upper elevations are about to start dropping thermals. So I'm going to get down to a point where I can get all that information. And plus, that's a period of time, I think, that does I've seen start coming and visiting those scrapes. And so they want to lay a visual eye on that scrape. If you got one in the thermal hub and it's a big like community scrape down in that thermal hub, look around on that eye level where you can see from it and see if you can find beds around it, like on the top of the lower 1/3, secondary ridge points, something like that. And I think that's where they're moving into. And then they stay there until that thermal switch hits, and they're no longer at an advantage, meaning the thermals above them are now below them. And once that kicks off, they're unsafe.
So that's when you're slipping in.
And that's when you're slipping in, and you get to the point that he's trying to exit that thermal hub. He's trying to catch that thermal that is moving down. He's getting all the information that's up here now. It's past him, and he's got to get down to it.
Again, timing is everything. So with that being said, they're having to move at that pretty much set in time or frame every time that they're in that area at least.
Yeah.
So what would you say is maybe like a a percentage that you're actually seeing the deer when you actually go in there? Like if he's there, are you pretty much guaranteeing that you're going to see him, or like?
No, it's never guaranteed.
Well, yeah, it's never
I would say probably it's less than 2%, but
it's a higher percentage.
That's a higher percentage than
another area.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Like I had last year, one buck. He ended up getting killed by somebody else, but I was after that buck for 3 years, and he ended up being 7.5-year-old when they killed him. And he would have been a 160. He had some broke off times, but I saw that deer in the same thermal hub 6 times last year. Within shooting range, I just couldn't get a shot off at him.
Well, the bow hunter.
Bow hunting, yeah. Yeah, just for whatever reason, it was in October too, it was early season. It was really, really early, so it was really, really thick, and he just never.
Was he kind of using the same point every time in that thermal?
He was like a clock. He was like, he had a route he was going, and he used it every time. Every time the same ridge point, drop down the same place.
Would you say most of the area that you've gotten on camera use the same exact pathway every time that they're actually in that area?
It may not be the same path, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
You know, they have a safe, it's like, I've used this for over and over, nobody's got me yet.
Yeah.
Definitely have to get into that here in a second. We're about to take us a break, guys, and we'll be right back. Y'all ready to get back into it?
Y'all ready? Hey, we just got through eating some Weavers. Weavers meat processing, best in Alabama as far as I'm concerned. We just had some sauce stuff. So we're ready to kick this second half off. And I know y'all ready too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that Weaver's hit the spot.
Yes, sir.
We got more if you need it.
Might have to.
We'll thank Miss Kathy for that. That was good.
Yeah.
Well, as we come back from our break, we're going to jump into how do you hunt thermals? Because that's a big misconception. I think a lot of people kind of screw it up a little bit.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of the idea that you can just find a thermal hub, find sign, and hunt the thermal hub. And like I said earlier, I think that's a recipe for a lot of wasted hunts.
Really?
It's very, very specific. And I've kind of talked about it. That's the only time I really feel comfortable hunting the thermal hub is that drop-in thermal. I just don't think you can. It has value as far as finding deer, but it's not. A lot of times it's just not. It's not worth the risk, especially that morning hunting. If you're banking on morning hunting and trying to hunt down in a thermal, you better have all your cards in the right location.
So what's some ways that what's some specific ways you see people messing up going into a thermal hub?
Get too low.
Too low.
Yeah, drop it down, because that buck is, like we just talked about, buck is more than likely, when you're hunting him, especially once the leaf off is there's a lot of cover down low and not a lot of cover up high, unless the high areas or thickets or something like that. A lot of times even that, they'll be down lower than you think they will, and you get down in his level, you'll never know he was there.
A lot of times I think so early season when it's still hot, they're lower and they move up sometimes. So it makes it tougher.
Yeah.
So the people that are wanting, well, let me put it this way. So when you want to go hunt a thermal hub, are you at all taking account early season from late season? Do those two have any difference in them?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Early season, if you have, like the pre leaf drop, is a lot different, because just like you said, they're going to be down lower because it's cooler down there, and they're, as that leaf drop happens, they're going to go up higher, because, and especially if you're, dealing with any kind of really cold temperature, they're going to be seeking out certain areas in that area. So, yeah, as the season progresses, prior to rut, it definitely changes. It's more of a from the bottom up, Like I see, that's why I counted on those bucks down lower in the thermal hubs, on the east facing thermal hub. As you progress the season, that happens less often. So your chances of catching him there, the later you go, get less and less. So your 2% chance may end up as a 0 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, you may have no chance because he's not there anymore. So that's why he's scouting, like you gotta be on top of it. It's just, the only thing I'm saying is if you've got a mature buck and he's in one, he's using it, that may be your only chance, but it may take you 3 years to kill that buck if you're after a specific buck,
Now, with your trail camera studies and stuff, with this thermals, as the season starts, have you noticed how the bucks would start figuring out the pressure, things have changed and move because of that, because of the people?
Yeah,
So,
oh yeah.
how far do you think they're moving? So
They're not moving far, but they're just moving enough that you can't.
just adjusting where they
just
are more
adjusting
aware of you or
with
something?
you, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I see this. I see them move like this may sound crazy, but like my deer that are further back away from the main road move closer to that main road as that season kicks off. Once they hear the gravel popping, they get snuggled right up next to it. So those thermal hubs that are closer to the road then become
Pretty hot.
good because everybody's walking right by them and they're coming right behind them.
Plus, it gets them closer to the road, and they kind of see. They can see
watch,
like where they're going.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Am I out of their way?
Yeah, like I've got one that you won't find. I didn't see any bucks in there until we got 2 weeks into bow season when the gun hunters started coming out scouting, which usually happens around October 15th. Until that point in time, I didn't have a single buck in there. All the bucks that were in there were way back in this piece of property, like a mile away. As soon as that started happening, I had like 6 mature bucks using this one thermal hub.
So, some people say that deer or bucks don't think or use reason, and that, to
That's
me,
totally wrong.
I don't understand why they even say that.
Yeah.
So,
No, I mean, they may not know what they're doing, but instinctually it's like, there's something going on here that I've got to change my ways,
I tell you what, most of the time they're doing something we ain't doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah. I mean, they don't bed next to a parking lot for no reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we think of them like a lot of times like a turkey, like an old gobbler or something. We give him that. No, their brain is way more developed than that.
that's what I always thought. Some people say, they can't think like that. I say, I don't know about that. That don't make sense. You'd be able to figure them out for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the West Moa story where that deer was walking behind the driver or whatever, that was crazy.
Even followed the zigzag he was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the safest place to be.
Right.
I mean, we used to do like little 2-man drives. Me and I have heard the story that you're talking about. I probably missed the episode, but it sounds like something. We used to do these little 2-man drives, and it'd be 2 guys walking down a ridge together, and it's like probably 2 or 3-man drives. Somebody would be placed at like the exit point, and 2 guys would walk in, and if you jumped a buck or jumped a doe, one guy would stop, and he would peel off behind and the other guy keep walking. We used to do this all the time. And the guy that did that loop was guaranteed, he wasn't guaranteed, but that guy killed a lot. Whoever was doing that killed a lot of deer,
Really?
Yeah.
Mature deer?
Mature deer, yeah. Yeah. And
Because a lot of times they don't take off, just run into the blind. They circle back to where they know what was happening. So.
Yeah, and they
Kind of like a rabbit,
it's
coming
like
back.
a rabbit,
Coming back to that spot there.
yeah.
That's some things I've noticed in my younger days of hunting is whenever I'd jump a buck, whatever, I try to go after where he went, trying to find him. And then I'd end up getting downwind somehow, and then you'd hear a deer blow off and, heavy deer run off.
Yeah.
A lot of times they just circle back around on me, and there I am trying to figure out where they went, and they just circle right back around and get my scent now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, a lot of times if I jump a buck, I'm going downwind to wherever I'm at. I'm just gonna make a beeline and I'm gonna try to get 100 yards downwind of where I've jumped him at, because I feel like that's where he's gonna loop back around to get back to the bed, because the bed worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of hype on thermal hubs now, and how would you recommend people hunt these without getting busted and not screwing it up?
Don't hunt them.
Don't hunt them?
Yeah. Yeah, just
There you
don't.
go.
Yeah.
Stay away.
Stay away.
That's
Yeah.
the easiest way.
Yeah, that's the best way. I mean, like I said, the only time I do it is it's east facing, certain period of time. Aside from that, I use a lot of camera data out of them. I'll hunt a west facing one Occasionally, if the wind is high enough to where I can get up high enough in elevation that my scent is being carried way away and I know it's consistent. Aside from that, I ain't fooling with them.
What do you do in the meantime when you're not hunting them?
I'm hunting I'm hunting topo hubs.
Yep.
I'm hunting the opposite of that. I'm hunting the upper steep, really steep elevation, you know.
That's in the mornings.
Mornings, yeah.
Are you waiting for a switch for the thermal to come up? So,
Yeah, I'm trying to use that elevation.
now on the steep ones like that, would you think it would start switching earlier, faster than the less steep ones? For
Yeah.
the thermal switch? So,
Yeah, it's kind of a fine line because, then those steeper ones, a lot of times there's more shaded out, so you can have that thermal that keeps dropping.
well, you're
Yeah.
using that coming
Yeah.
in from the bottom, hunting in the morning?
No, I'm coming in from the top, but I'm like I said, I'm only doing that if it's high enough wind to where I'm at is riding over the top of those thermals.
Okay.
You know, it's just very specific. You know, I do a lot more walking and a lot more than I do hunting. You know, like I hunt like little short periods of time. You know, I'm walking rather than that. That's, you know, somebody follows me around and looks at my track, then you may be 7, 8 miles, you know, I may put on in the morning just walking, you know, cause I don't feel comfortable sitting down and hunting somewhere, you know.
You ready to scout and waste
Go
time?
scouting and hunting a little short interval, you know.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, it's just the way I've always done it, you know.
That's pretty interesting.
So as two experienced hunters as yourself, how do y'all like take advice from other hunters when you kind of have like your own little, I guess, way you hunt? How do you take advice on different things that you hear and put it into your setup?
I mean, I try to take little pieces of what everybody says, like things that Michael has said, things that, you know, a bunch of different people, I mean, like, and just kind of apply it to what I'm doing, you know. Like he's talking about the does, like leaving them alone, and that, you know, especially early season because you're counting on them, and that's something I'm gonna try to really use, you know. And it's not that I'm hounding those or really hunting them, but I'm trying to keep track of it, and I think I'd be better off just hands off, you know. Like I think that's some of the stuff where I'm trying to track with their movement. Really don't need to. I just need to know where they are and just let them leave, let them be, you know. Like that's just one little things that and that's what I try to do with everybody, you know.
Right, that's like you're talking about the 2% with the thermal hub, with the does, leaving the does alone is another percentage that helps, you know.
Yeah.
Is, you know, keeping up with them, leaving them alone, let them feel safe, and they could bring them back to you, hopefully. So, you know, I love listening to a bunch of different podcasts, and so the way I learn stuff is hitting the woods and finding tracks, you know, and finding these crow's feet, wagon wheels, you know, things, and then looking for historical rubs going different directions, and then, you know, just knowing, hey, this is the place I need to be. But see, now people like him that have really spent the time and getting into the technical part of it, the mapping part of it, and actually seeing what's going on. I'm trying to, you know, it's some of that stuff is way over my head, but it's just taking me time to start piecing why I'm seeing this stuff and why that sign's there, and understanding that. And that really, you know, I'm 58 years old and still want to learn more about it because it ain't easy. You know, it's tough, but we love it. But listening to him and other people who talk about that stuff is just amazing. I'm, you know, like I said, picking up pieces of it and starting to understand more and try to, you know, just more pieces for the puzzles.
Yeah, and you may be 58, but I think we all can agree here that we're always going to be learning about it as long as we're doing
Oh
it.
yeah.
If you're not, you know, you're basically just giving up, or, you know, or getting tired.
You're not
of it.
trying.
So,
Yeah, and as you get older, as an older hunter, I mean, I'm approaching 50. You start looking for reasoning, you know, like that was my thing. Like you start looking at reasoning and less, like I'm not really worried about killing. I mean, I love to harvest, but I'm not. It's not my number one thing, you know. Now it's about figuring things out and then applying what I'm learning. You know, what I've learned. Like there's no sense in hunting for 40 years, hunting for 30 years, and you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Like that, to me, that just isn't.
Definition of
Yeah.
insanity, doing the same thing over and over again.
Because, I mean, unless you expand, I mean, that's why I'm really excited about being in different areas, because I'm gonna have to start from ground zero and learn a whole new area that's completely different than what I'm used to, so,
Right.
you know.
That's something I love is hearing a podcast, whatever. Hearing some advice or something they look for and they find, and then finding that out there and going, okay, this makes sense what they're saying.
Right.
'Cause now that I see it in person.
Yeah, and we talked about this, and I'll mention it now. One of the things that I have a theory on is why are we seeing morning movement, like midday morning movement? And just based off of my trail camera stuff, I think that 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock morning movement is kicked off a lot by the rising thermals.
Really?
Yeah, I think that starts a lot of it, you know, because it's pretty consistent, you know. So that's one thing that over the next 2 years, I'm gonna do a lot of, you know, camera work in areas that would be affected to, and hopefully a year or two from now, I'll have a better understanding of that, you know.
Would you prefer that part over like the moon part that everybody talks about? So,
Yeah, I mean, the moon has something to do, but I can't quantify it enough to count on it, you know.
Count on the thermal part
Yeah,
better.
I count on the thermal part better, you know.
If someone could ever just figure out, okay, if the moon's like this, and then the thermal's doing this, and this right here, and this
Oh, I
right
tried.
here.
I mean,
yeah, we all try.
I mean,
Like,
yeah.
you go crazy.
But a lot of times
Might
it's
go
like,
from 2% to 4%.
yeah, I mean, y'all saw those, I don't know if you've seen all those maps and stuff that I created last year. It's
Yeah.
like, man, this kind of making me confusing, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, some of it gets overwhelming.
It's like, I don't need to fool with that, you know, like, just fool with this.
Yeah, and I'm sure just with your thermal hubs, you're keeping very detailed notes and stuff
Yeah.
like that, because you kind of got to.
Yeah, every little pen's got like a, you know, a paragraph underneath it, you know.
I used to moon just to find, like, locate deer at night, jump across the road or whatever. But as far as hunting, I don't think I've noticed, which I haven't looked for it either, but I don't think I've like just noticed it. Oh yeah, it was a full moon last night.
I think it probably affects does because it's more of they're more similar, so it may affect their movement more. But individual bucks is individual bucks. They're a different animal.
I've had
yeah.
a guy come and look through my journal, look, 'cause I got times and stuff on bucks, and they could not find any correlation to the moon
Yeah.
stuff with it. So it's just,
Yeah.
and there's so many other variables that, you know, coyotes, people, you know, dogs, whatever, that could, or doe and heat that could make a deer change or move. So it's just, you're trying to specify one thing that does it, and that's not gonna work. So
Yeah.
Like I said, I think once a buck gets 3.5-year-old and older, I mean, the rules are out the window.
Yeah, they are.
It's just like you were saying, one buck could be 6 miles this away, and he moves 6 miles, you know, every week. He makes a big, and this one, then the next one literally won't leave 100 yards, you know. That's just the way it is, you know.
Yeah, Tony Myers, his statement is they've become a professional survivalist. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just,
that's it.
when they get to that age, they've learned a lot. So it's
Yeah.
So coming in the early season now, what we got? 10 days, 11 days,
7.
7.
Well, 8.
Wait. What's y'all's plan? Now, y'all just gonna get out there and hang and hope, or y'all just getting out there?
I don't ever try to just hang and hope.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't like that feeling of doing that. I'm gonna do a lot more scouting than sitting, of course, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be there, you know.
yeah, I'm gonna do a couple of checks Friday before hanging hunts, or me and Kathy will be out there. We're gonna carry a camper on Friday, then set up and then go check a couple of places and try that for Saturday evening. Or she's gonna only hunt half a day, so I'll hunt mornings, and then I got one buck that I kinda have, older buck that I didn't get him on camera this year, but I'm hoping it's still alive, and gonna try out a general spot for him in the morning, and in the evening, they're gonna try to find something fresh or track like I was talking about this, but other than that, we're gonna trying to find some kind of fresh sign to do that. Then there'll be another, after that, it'll be a whole week and a half where I can go again, so basically starting over, for early season, so more acorns, depending on how the acorns drop, so.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get out there, and I still got some more scouting I really wanna do. But I'm also, it could be enough for nothing, cause, they might just completely change their patterns like you're talking about. So we'll go out there and we'll see how it goes.
Depending on what you want to do, you know, some people you find a big buck and you just try to play a chess game with him. You know, if you want to do that early season and just, you know, make moves trying to figure him out and hopefully get him till the rut. I mean, you got options. There's different ways you can, you know, strategize how you want to do it. If you found one that you know about where he's at, you know, you just depending on what you want to do. You young cats, y'all can. I know y'all don't want to be too patient, so y'all can play a little chess game or do a 2-team. Y'all, me and my wife, we do a tag team style of hunt. If we got a particular bucks in the area, we do like 2 different setups. So where one way might help the other person. So
how do you know when that buck's like, okay, he's left the area? How do you kind of know that, or do you?
You won't know.
Just
not unless you see him in the back of somebody's truck or a picture of him. That's it. So.
Yeah.
Could you talk about the tag teaming that you was just talking about, like how you go about tag teaming? And
Well, if we got, you know, sometimes I think if a buck's betting on the ridge or something, he could come down a different way, and we'll set up in 2 different positions, me and my wife and Eden. So it's just trying to help each other. So,
yeah, percentage.
So if we like during the rut, if you got different creek crossings or different junctions and stuff, it's in the same area. I'll hunt one and she hunts one. You know, just trying to process elimination. So. And that's rut hunting.
Yeah, we jumped a buck just this hunt I was just on. We tried to do the same thing. There was 3 of us, and we tried to soft bump him using one guy's scent, drifted into where we thought he was bedded at, and kind of placed 2 guys kind of on the 2 exit points, just hoping that he would. Then of course flooded out of rain, so it kind of ruined our plan. So
yeah.
Yeah, you know, if you got buddies and stuff, you got all kinds of strategies you can try. You know, it's just,
early season,
early
good
season,
time to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
May need to get on that.
Yeah. I got some areas that I know there's at least a buck in there.
We also
somewhere.
got some buddies that would probably go too.
Yeah.
If you know an area where there's a buck at now, I mean, they're transitioning, but a lot of people think that transition's like huge, but usually it's, you know, in my history of watching it, it's usually not as large as
Especially on mature buck, I don't think so.
Buck,
It just
they're not gonna go from one whole area to another.
Yeah, he's in that one area for a reason because he feels comfortable,
Yeah.
safe. Why would he move?
yeah,
He may move
everything
from-
he needs is there. So.
Yeah.
Well, we wrap this up, guys. We appreciate y'all coming on, and what would be one thing y'all say to a new hunter out there listening?
Stay out of thermal hubs.
Stay out of thermal hubs.
Yeah. Don't believe the hype. Just right now because you're hearing it so much. You know.
Go about it the right way.
Go about it the right way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't just pile off in there. That'd be because you're getting hounded with thermal hubs right now.
I mean, you took 2 years off from pretty much hunting it just to learn it.
Just to learn it. So yeah.
And you come from a background of firefighting and have that wind knowledge and everything like that.
Yeah.
Imagine us with nothing, no knowledge.
It would be tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
My biggest thing is, you know, especially young ones, don't get overwhelmed with all the podcast stuff. You know, pick out a style that you want to do, and then just fresh sign, fresh tracks, and stuff like that, and trying to basic hunt off of that, especially early season. Because if you try to put thermal hub versus, you know, acorn versus bedding and all that, and into one thing, and try to hunt like that, you might just drive yourself crazy, or just, you know, overthink. You know, don't overthink. You know, go back to the basics. That'd be to me. And think about that stuff, and then tie it in with the basics. You know, you still got to have the sign. Deer's got to be there. You know, the deer's got to be there to hunt it. You know, a buck's got to be where, and then set your goals wherever you want to shoot, and make sure that's there in that area, or find one. You know, so it's just going to, like he said, you go to a thermal hub, and just go in there, and it's you're basically letting him know you're hunting him. So
Yeah.
So,
Well, Michael, thanks for joining us again.
hey, thank y'all for having me.
No problem. And Shane, it was good to meet you and talk to you today.
Y'all likewise. Thank y'all for having me on.
No problem.
We're wrapping this up, so we'll see y'all in the next video. See y'all. Thank y'all for watching this video. Hey, we appreciate y'all's support. Hey, if you don't care, if you haven't got a book yet, Amazon, get a book. We got hard copies now available. It took me a while to get them, but hey, they're on there now. Again, we appreciate it. Appreciate everybody's hard work that helped us to get this done, you know, lifetime achievement. So anyway, you can get one, and Thanks again for y'all's support. Subscribe, like, tell your friends, and we'll keep coming up with these videos. So we'll see y'all on the next one.